First things first, how are the Socceroos looking ahead of their group match against Tunisia tomorrow night?
Well, I guess they're looking as good as could be expected given their 4-1 loss to France in the opening match. But they're really good in a headspace kind of way. They're physically at their best. Aiden Rustic will also make a comeback into the team as expected. And so it'll be a very different proposition against Tunisia this time around. And not only will they be taking on the Tunisian team, who's looking pretty good, it has to be said, but they'll also be taking on an expected 40,000 strong Tunisian crowd. They seem to be here en masse, and so it'll be a really noisy and atmospheric conditions for the Socceroos, most definitely.
Indeed. What have been the highlights of the recent matches played?
There have been quite a few actually, and some major surprises. Japan beating Germany and Argentina going down to Saudi Arabia. They are big wigs to have been claimed so early on at a World Cup. It's only the group stages, of course, but to think that those two teams defeated some of the giants of world football historically is really something interesting. We've also seen teams like Tunisia and Morocco holding much more fancied teams to draws, and I guess it shows a bit of a pivot, a bit of a shifting in the tectonic plates of world football.
Well, this has really been a World Cup for the region, uniting old relationships that had soured over the years with the blockade of Qatar.
Yes, and that blockade went years long, didn't it? And Qatar was really frozen out by all of those neighbours around them. There was a little bit of animosity there, a little bit of jealousy. The World Cup did have something to do with that. But that all changed. At the opening ceremony, it was quite interesting seeing the number of heads of state from all of those neighbouring countries that came together, and even some of them known to have their own fractious relationship. But that has been a sign of real respect for the Qatari leadership here, that have proven themselves time and time again as real negotiators. We know that they play a significant role with the Americans and negotiating with the Taliban in Afghanistan. All of those discussions happen here in Qatar, and they proved it again at the opening ceremony.
And Tracy, the crowds are very different to the usual ones seen at a World Cup, we've been reporting. The teams must be sensing that difference in support.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, this is one of the selling points that Qatar always had with their bid. They said it was going to be first in the region and it would be for the region. And that has really proven to be the case. We know that there are shuttle flights coming in and out of Dubai every day, I think Oman as well. There are even flights coming in from Israel, which is a first. Those flights must have Palestinians on board to be able to land here. So Palestinians and Israelis flying in together. But it really is something quite significant. The people here really do feel as though, you know, they are showcasing their part of the world to the rest of the world, which they feel so often has ignored them.
Tell us a bit more about what the locals' response have been. I mean, I can see there's a lot of enthusiasm from the crowds behind you and the noise we can hear. But tell us perhaps in more detail how they've responded to the tournament.
Well, it's been quite fascinating watching it shift once the tournament got underway, because we know there was a real sustained campaign against Qatar holding the World Cup, particularly by Western media, and that lasted, you know, the 12 years between winning the bid and D-Day here starting the World Cup. But when you talk to the locals, the overwhelming sense they have is one of pride. They feel like they've done it. A very small place, a very small nation, a very small city, and I was speaking to one person the other day who described it now as the smallest, biggest city in the world, because the whole world is here. But one of the ladies, I was doing a cross the other day back to ABC, and when I was packing up, a lady came over to me. She was just wheeling through the park with her husband and 2 young children, and she gave me a sweet, and she said, "Welcome to Qatar." I spoke to her afterwards. Her name is Sarah, and she gave me some thoughts about what the Qataris are hoping that hosting this World Cup will do for their relationship with the wider world.
I feel very proud and happy that everyone is coming here. It feels good to see everyone sees our civilization. They know better about us from closer.
Great to hear Sarah's thoughts there. Well, Tracy, finally, what else can we expect in the coming week in terms of matches?
Well, I guess we finished the group stage and then it becomes the knockout phase. And so it'll be interesting to see with some of these, big teams that have already suffered losses unexpectedly. I probably should have thrown in one of the highlights way back at the beginning there with Portugal last night playing Ghana. What a sensational match that was. And we saw Cristiano Ronaldo setting records yet again. He's the first man in history to have scored in 5 consecutive World Cups. So we'll be watching Portugal, we'll be watching Brazil, who are one of the favourites. We'll be watching Germany and Argentina to see if they can recover from early losses. And of course, we'll be watching to see how the Socceroos go and hopefully get out of the group phase.
Exciting stuff ahead. And Ronaldo, what an achievement. Maybe we'll see some more records in this Qatar tournament coming up in the coming week. Thanks so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Yvonne.